Welcome back to the Torque Test channel. This is it, DeWalt's highest torque impact ever, at least until they make something bigger. But this is pretty big, 1900 foot-pounds from a pistol style impact you can one hand operate if you're feeling frisky. The DCF964, a 3/4 inch version of their new size format high torque based on the DCF961 that has a VTEC turbo lag type punch a few seconds in impacting, which is always a crowd favorite around here. And because this thing has a massive motor inside that we imagine is pretty thirsty, we took this episode as a chance to also take a look at and test some batteries, including DeWalt's new tabless cell power pack, how that compares to the rest of DeWalt's long roster of packs, and a sort of new entry into the cordless tool battle arena, USA-made batteries, or it would appear so. These claim to be as energy dense as batteries get, work on DeWalt in this case, and supposedly made in America through and through. It does say made, not just assembled, so we'll take a look at this unique looking offering simply because we're curious and want to see where they take us. This is the DCF964. It's finally here. Project Ludicrous, as DeWalt has been internally calling this platform for over a year, finally coming to its full form here. We have this thanks to our viewer Nathan, who wanted to see it tested ASAP. We've been holding out for Milwaukee to hopefully come out with a 3/4 inch version of their high torque and do a head-to-head, but no luck on that front so far. 3/4 inch impacts, and cordless at least, are a bit lame. Swap a 3/4 inch anvil into an existing 1/2 inch tool, and bam, you have a 3/4 inch cordless with higher advertised torque and usually $50, $60 more. The 964, at least in that regard, price is not so different. This big boy asking $399 retail, up from $369. Not too bad, but the reason we, and probably a lot of you, have been anxiously awaiting its release is this is basically a ground up 3/4 inch sort of effort that they simply came out with 1/2 inch in first. Something few brands, basically Ingersoll Rand and XGT, do, make a custom heavy duty mega torque that's not just a 1/2 inch high torque with 2 anvil options. Which means we're thinking we might be in for a ride, because the 961 absolutely decimates impact sockets, and it's a bucking bronco on anything tight enough to give it some trouble. You can tell this tool, there's some extra left on the table by trying to shave down all that power and point it towards a little 1/2 inch square. Something not always the case with 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch high torques, which means we can step up to a larger socket, larger dyno when we want to and should we need to, which also means we should be able to get every last little extra bit of beans that this tool and its many battery options has to offer, and measure those. But first, before we get there, let's see how this new tool stacks up in stock form, which, lucky for us and its customers at least, comes in a kit with a 5 amp hour power stack. That's nice to see. Here's our 5-second forward working torque test. The 1/2 inch DCF961 and Milwaukee's latest high torque with a forged pack on screen, because simply those two make the most here. Let's see it. $673 foot-pounds. Nice, that's pretty good considering the last time we tested a DCF961 with anvil parts swapped to 3/4 inch using pieces from past impact wrenches was at this point at a lower torque figure than even the 1/2 inch. And we haven't even seen its full form yet. Party mode isn't unlocked at this point yet, so let's see that in our 10-second reverse max torque test. Man, that VTEC is something else. 1,088 foot-pounds. That's closing in on the largest gap between 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch models we've ever seen on the channel, and we're not even done yet. Cresting 1,000 foot-pounds in a 10-second test with the included in-kit battery. That is crazy talk. That VTEC does hit harder. Even each hit is more, well, yeah, like impactful with the 3/4 inch anvil and a 3/4 inch socket to support it. 1088 is already getting up sort of where we start to lose data from bolt stretch at the 1200-ish, 1150 mark. So assuming we're heading for the moon here, we need to, in fact, step over to our big boy Skidmore dyno, already calibrated for this socket and benchmarked to other tools. Unless this plans to make 5,000 plus, we should be okay on this thing from here out. Let's see it. 15 seconds, the best we could muster on the day. 1,167 foot-pounds, a new 3/4 inch record, and sitting noticeably above the 985 and also the 920 from the M18 with a forge pack, and over 100 foot-pounds above the swapped anvil custom one we tested, a 182 foot-pound gain from anvil and nose cover with new bushing swap. One of the rare times their torque marketing increases from a simple anvil difference is sort of accurate in this case. The hammer inside this thing is massive, requiring a 2-stage planetary, basically like a transmission plus final drive to even spin it around. That'll focused onto the surface area of a 1/2 inch anvil is both a tough ask to deliver those hammer forces in an efficient manner and a bit of a rodeo on your part to act as the captain of that whole ship. A 3/4 inch remedies a healthy portion of each of those things I just mentioned, resulting in more torque delivered to the bolt when you're dealing with hopped up forces and VTEC kicking in all of a sudden, and we find in most cases a more manageable tool. The 1/2 inch version earned from us a record 9.25 in subjective wrist breaking score. The new 964 3/4 inch gets a still very hands-on 8.5. You still have to anticipate the turbo lag this thing sees when it kicks in if you don't want to bounce off things, and it can still get socket welded where it sticks to the bolt head and chatters the tool to death with no progress seen after that. All high power impacts can do this. DeWalt's annoyingly do it the most, and this 3/4 inch still lessens this, but frustratingly it's not gone. I've had weaker impacts finish a job that a DCF 900 tried to do, but it would just get stuck doing this sort of thing. Can be annoying. Now, if you don't care about new battery tech and squeezing the most out of a watts-hungry tool like this, you can probably skip towards the end to the tool ranking. But this is what a lot of you have been waiting for. A lot of you have been asking for the DeWalt 8 amp hour power pack with tabless 21700 cells inside. These utilize amp-base JP40 cells inside a tabless 21700 cell that almost every brand is rolling out with these days. Milwaukee, Bosch, Rigid, Ryobi. Heck, I'm sure by the end of next year, you're going to see Harbor Freight with these. So we haven't been in a rush to dedicate any one video to what are essentially different color housings on the same cells. What I have not seen until a viewer pointed these out for us is USA-made power tool batteries by an outfit named Titan, who offer a lot of airsoft, RC aircraft, and drone batteries. Snap-on has advertised USA power tools, but even them, their batteries are mostly assembled in the US. These even have a big USA flag on them, signaling they're the real deal, but most of the time we find Samsung, Korean, or Chinese batteries in most of these things we open regardless of the country they come from. The prices seem comparable to that of tool brands, which is to say pretty pricey. We paid $98 for the 4 amp hour and $159 for the 8 amp hour. Comparing an 8 amp hour to an 8 and a 4 amp hour to a 4, they are super small. It's looking like they're squeezing 8 amp hours into a standard 5 amp hour XR case and a 4 into DeWalt's tiny 2 amp hour battery type housing. Taking them apart, you'll find simple boards, which is typical of DeWalt stuff, hand soldered wired leads onto 6 to 8 times spot welded cells, whose ends are covered in anti-conductive tape. At the heart, we do find 18650s from a brand none of us have heard of, Amprius. Amprius appears to have been founded in Fremont, California, with a location now in Colorado too, that make batteries in the USA, mainly polymer type, silicon-based, it appears. But they focus on energy density, and that's these 4,000 milliamp hour, like a real 4,000, not the 4,000 you see on Amazon. It's a lot for an 18650 and how they fit that much capacity in these traditional looking small body shells. The cases appear to be ABS plastic, not polycarbonate or PA6 or PA66 nylon, so that's got to be, we assume, a trade-off. But gotta say, did not expect these to be both USA made on the outside and the inside. I imagine those are pretty pricey cells. Let's see what a different packs do to the biggest, baddest impact DeWalt's ever made and that we've ever tested in this size range. So up first is the 5 amp hour XR, the standard pack they put in most of their kits. And it's also the size of that Titan 8 amp hour that's going to be coming up. $844 Not only was this less, this eventually shut off from the load on the pack, only completing 80% of the run with the finger still on the trigger. It really is a tool that demands a lot once it ramps up into that VTEC. The compact 4 amp hour from DeWalt with 21700 cells had better luck though. That's this. $983, we're still comparing to a standard kit battery here, which is a 5 amp hour power stack, noticeably less beans on the chart, and in person, a second or two into that steep ramp up, you can feel the tool sort of lay over. Here's the Titan 4 amp hour, extra compact considering it takes up the space of a 2 amp hour battery. Yeah, this tool proves too much for a single row of Amprius 18650s. None of those in parallel to help out. You can sort of get it working half throttle, but it shuts off at full throttle each time. Let's take a closer look. This is a load test. We like to measure voltage sag here, how much the packs drop in running volts when under a request of power from a tool. In this case, with smaller packs, a healthy but not earth-shaking 400 watts. The DeWalt 4 amp hour compact with 21700 cells is dropping to about 18.35, 18.3 volts after 10 seconds of draw. The Titan, on the other hand, a smaller pack, but also 4 amp hours of a fuel tank, how long you can run it, drops much more dramatically, 16 volt down to 15.75 volts. Not comparatively great, but also 18650s versus 21700. So we took Titan's inspiration for a battery shape, we'll call it, but a 2 amp hour here, and this is, even this one dropped not too terribly, about down to 17.15 volt after 10 seconds. And if you would give it several attempts, as in sometimes it wouldn't, sometimes it would, to complete a run, this one could make sometimes 708 foot-pounds. You can make more than that with most half-inch impacts these days. It is being underdriven for sure. A curious result, though, that we did see. We're done throttling this tool, though. Let's just inject it with as much discharge amps and total watts as it wants with the new 8 amp hour tabless power pack from DeWalt and see what it can do. $1,265, a new 3/4 inch record. Again, this thing eats when you give it enough. I would not recommend trying to get more out of your half-inch DeWalt, like a 961 with bigger and better batteries like this. Plainly, a lot of that ends up wasted. It just can't put it down. And that's where things are these days. You can feel the progress this tool makes with each hit. It feels like the opposite of an impact driver. But this data alone might not be all that useful to you depending on what battery you do own. The standard 8 amp hour XR pack with 21700 cells, let's see that on screen in blue. $1,124, pretty good, but Samsung 40Ts, not all that spicy in today's world, and even the 5 amp hour power stack here able to best it. Let's see what has historically been our top usable size DeWalt battery, the 9 amp hour, 3 rows of that spicier flavor, Samsung 21700, the 30T. Let's see it. $1,232, pretty darn good. We'll have to see more constant draw tools if this gap widens when we try them, but still, for a lighter, smaller pack, beat the 9 amp hour. It's pretty impressive. All right, and we've made it. Don't have to listen to any more ugga-duggas after this one. The USA-made 8 amp hour Titan. 950 foot-pounds, and we confirmed this from multiple runs. Ultimately, can't really crest a 21700 cell from DeWalt, even in their 4 amp hour format. But, I mean, we're pretty silly here over at TTC. We drag race tools because it's cool and we want to know it. So in person, this was disappointing, I'll admit. We might just be testing them sort of the opposite for their intended use. Looking at their site, they make a lot of RC flying batteries where weight and size, basically energy density, is the goal. And that may be the case for these too. You're not going to find a real, like not just written on AliExpress, but real 8 amp hour battery this size or 4 amp hour battery this size for power tools these days. So runtime versus size and weight is their strength. So like on tools like these, we're talking sanders, routers, nail guns, even impact drivers in most cases. You're probably going to get a lot more use on a charge with a lighter overall tool than something you can buy from the real brand made in the US for around what the brand might charge. Not mad at it. They already show sold out on their website, so don't blame us. Not sure if and when they come back in stock. Enough of our discharge Delta detour here though. Let's rank this monster. Its test runs are recorded here with scores of 67, 109, and 117. That's some pretty up there stuff. With the battery, it weighs in at 9.3 pounds. That's this much torque per unit of weight. Another record on this ranking, which includes nitrous oxide fed gas impact wrenches. It claims 1,420 foot-pounds tightening torque, which is what we test in forward and reverse. It made as much as 89% of that with any battery today for us. Pretty good in this crowd. $399 retail is not a lot considering the company this thing keeps at this end of the impact range and gets 43.9 points as a function of performance and price. Pretty good. That totals a very good 542.9, placing it just below the big boy 1-inch M18 impact. Less torque total, sure, but size, weight, price, for that torque, it places mighty high for a one-hander on this ranking. The downside of a 3/4 inch is always going to be sockets. These sets cost a lot, weigh a lot, take up a lot of space in our toolbox, but if a DCF900 or Milwaukee 2967 ain't taking it off, it's time to step up because this is the next frontier when it comes to impacts, and it takes a serious tool to be that next step up from today's 1/2-inch high torques. And we find that may come at a cost. Shortly after getting this very tool back to Nathan, it developed a Pop Rocks-like sounding gearbox inside, even in free speed. Not sure if this is from our testing, and we've personally seen this happen to DeWalt's before. Either way, we're going to cover any costs associated with it, though he expects it to be a pain-free warranty experience with his local DeWalt store. Could be a fluke. Our 1/2-inch is still working. In the meantime, keep those receipts and click subscribe below. Okay, that last one doesn't do anything other than show you our videos every Friday. We make them each week. Thanks for watching.